I guess I'm the one who's supposed to welcome everybody here to the virtual Unmapped Brewing. Yeah, sorry we couldn't meet in person today. I guess the weather was a little bit too tricky, and I think it's probably for the best. Everybody kind of didn't brave those nasty streets out today. So, anyways, thank you all for being here. This is going to be really interesting for me. I'm looking forward to learning a lot from this call and this video conference today, and hopefully in the future we can do this again at Unmapped. So I guess we'll start some introductions. My name is JD Park. I'm one of the owners of Unmapped Brewing. My wife Megan is on the call. I think she told me, she just texted me that she couldn't figure out how to unmute herself. So, but she's out there somewhere, and so she's joining us as well. We're the co-owners of Unmapped Brewing. We're in Minnetonka, and we've been open for about 2.5 years now. And yeah, we're looking forward to learning more from this call. And again, I really hope that we can actually do this in person too in the future. But yeah, thank you all for being here, and I guess I'll let the rest of the group introduce themselves.
Well, hey everybody, Congressman Dean Phillips here.
I'm Todd Mickelson. I own a company called Spray Rack out in Orono, Minnesota.
Sarah Piepenberg. I own Vinaigrette.
I'm Marie Ellis. I'm with the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits, representing about 2,200 employers.
I'm Ileana Mejia, and I'm also with Minnesota Council of Nonprofits.
I'm Julie Noreen. I own Light Dark Landscape. My business partner Shannon is on the call, but I'm not sure if she has her audio worked out. So I'll introduce Shannon is also on the call.
State Representative Kelly Morrison.
Frank Brown, Minuteman Press, Uptown. I definitely didn't want to show my face. I might scare you guys away.
Is that it?
Anyone else? All right. Well, again, I'm Todd Mickelson, and I'm just going to give a little bit of an explanation of why we're here. Main Street Alliance, we've really been working a lot on paid family and medical leave, and among other things. A lot of us have individual stories about how paid family and medical leave would have already or would help us in the future. I myself provide paid family and medical leave for my employees. Most small business owners that I know can't really afford to do that, but it's extremely expensive. For instance, my main shop supervisor broke his hip, needed his hip replaced. I did the math, and it cost me about $4,000 to pay him to stay home. And it would have cost me the equivalent of a cup of coffee per week had paid family and medical leave been going on. So it's the way it works basically is it would be the same as paying to unemployment insurance. So the employer would pay half and the employee would pay half. In this case, it's less than 1/2 of 1%. So it would be basically just how, we all already are paying unemployment insurance for each of our employees. This would be equivalent to that. That also means that it would not be a taxpayer-funded implementation. It would be paid for by us, the actual business owners. So it's a way for us to pool together, help each other out when one of us or a small group of us needs a boost. If somebody's mother is sick, if somebody has a baby, both parents can take time off up to 12 weeks. And this will pay at least a percentage of the income for those employees. So that's why we're for it. We're behind it. We got it passed in the Senate in 2016. We got it passed through 10 committees in the House here in Minnesota this session. And so we're still pushing for it, and we're going to keep going until it becomes a reality. We're going to hear stories from a couple other people Sarah's going to share a story, and so is Julie. And I think we can go ahead and do that now. Sarah, do you want to tell your story?
Sorry, I was just unmuting. I have 5 kids in my house right now. So if you hear any noise in the background, it's actually them downstairs. But I got involved in fighting for paid family and medical leave specifically because of an employee that I had. Linda was 61, 62 at the time and needed hip replacement. And while she was on leave from that, we decided as a business, because we have actually an unlimited sick policy, that it was the right thing to do to pay her. And when we showed up to deliver her check, we went to her apartment, and as she's sitting in her recliner with a TV tray in front of her with all of her bills, trying to figure out how she was going to make ends meet. And the only mistake I think that Linda would say that she made was not planning for her husband's untimely death. And he passed away, and she realized she wasn't making enough in her retirement to survive. So she came to work for me and my little retail store. And while she was out, we paid her. And that forced us to have to make some pretty big decisions. Two of which, one was not to pay our house payment, and one was not to make our commercial rent payment. And though we've come out of that, and we know it was the right thing to do, if we had a policy in place, this wouldn't be such a struggle for me as an individual business owner. Subsequently, Linda has had to have a knee replacement, and unfortunately, she's not going to be coming back to work for us. And I think the thing that's really hard about that is if we had this policy, at least I could send her off, with 12 weeks paid for her medical leave. And I've gone to testify 6 different times before numerous committees. And again, though we passed it in the House, it never made it to the Senate. And unfortunately, despite our best efforts to meet with senators here in Minnesota, we were, met with a hard no on multiple occasions. And working with the governor, again, on multiple occasions, multiple roundtables, we know that Minnesota supports this. We just have a roadblock, unfortunately, and it's kind of based on party lines, which is really, really, really unfortunate. But we will continue to show up. I will continue to fight. This is the thing that I can do for Linda to show her how valuable she is as an individual. She worked for 27 years for the phone company. And again, when these older people are faced with the fact that they can't afford to live in retirement and are working for small businesses like mine and others, it's a no-brainer for me. It's a no-brainer for me as a business owner.
Thank you, Sarah. Also, we should point out that this is a very popular issue with the general public. It polls extremely high, I believe close to 90%, 85 or 90%. Main Street Alliance did do a survey of more than 1,300 businesses a few years ago, and it polled at about 74% in favor among small business owners through Main Street Alliance survey. So that's another thing to point out. Why don't we listen to what Julie's story is? Julie?
Hello, everyone. I'm Julie. I'm one of the owners of Light Dark Landscape. We are a pretty small company. We started in 2013. It was me and Shannon, my business partner, and this past season, we had 5 employees. We kind of by design like to keep it small. We focus on restoration work, and so we're kind of very hands-on with our clients. And how this bill would affect us right now is that my business partner, Shannon, who's on the call, is pregnant, and she's due end of March, kind of at the beginning of our season. And so we've been meeting in the last couple of weeks trying to really strategize how this is going to work for us. We have decided to not buy some equipment that we really need for next season to expand our business, just to ensure she gets some pay when she's gone. We've also had the conversation of, can she bring a baby on site? You know, all of our work, especially May, June, July, is very much in the field, very physical. So she had to come to me and ask, like, are you okay with me bringing my infant on site? Which, you know, ideally I would really love for her to have a full 3 months off. And we're working, and hopefully she can get at least 2. And I think we have financially figured out how that would work. But it would really ease our pressure and our stress to have access to these funds. And not only that, we do have employees. Our employees have had sick family members, have had to call in, and we're still so small. It's hard for us to be able to cover all of these costs. And so, yeah, for us, it would just, planning would be so much easier. We would be able to continue to grow without worrying about how are we going to sock away enough money to pay for her salary while she's gone, which you know, we're not a well-off, super able to cover all those costs company, and it would be so helpful for us to be able to tap into these funds.
Thank you, Julie. Yeah, so that's a great example of, you know, she had to make choices of not buying new equipment. Also, this levels the playing field for interviewing new employees. I know we are feeling the shortage of qualified workers right now in my business. And so being able to compete with larger corporations, a lot of which see the benefit of doing this, so they do provide it for their workers, but it's a lot easier for them because, you know, the percentage wise, they have a lot more workers. It's easier for them to provide this, but they see the benefit in providing it, and they do provide it. So if somebody comes to interview with me and they say, well, I just interviewed with this other place, I'd rather work for you, but they offer paid family and medical leave. Can you offer that? Right now I could say, well, no, but I can afford to give you a cup of coffee once a week. So, but it would be great to be able to say, yes, as a matter of fact, I can provide paid family and medical leave. So it levels the playing field in many ways for smaller businesses. So why don't we open up to Dean Phillips, Congressman Dean Phillips, and we have Minnesota Representative Kelly Morrison. Dean, do you have anything to add?
Well, first, thank you, Todd. Thank you, Sarah and Julie, for sharing your stories. You know, and I can relate. You know, some of you might know I come from a business background and built larger businesses, and now help operate a much smaller one, even though my time doesn't afford that opportunity. Penny's Coffee. And in my Penny's experience, I can really empathize with the stories I heard today and so many more about the challenges of building a small business. So I want to thank you for taking the time with me. And my interest today is to listen and ultimately work with you to develop some thoughtful plans that I can share in Washington and also advocate for here at the state level. It's outrageous that we're the only developed nation in the world without a comprehensive paid leave policy. And that's offensive, and I think we should rectify that. We should have a federal minimum standard, at least, by which we operate. Some of you might know the NDAA, the Defense Authorization Act, we just voted on, and it's the first time we've guaranteed paid leave provisions for federal employees. So we have taken steps, and that means that planting those seeds could yield some good results if we stay active and be strong advocates. Same with sick time and childcare and early investments in childcare, the portability of health benefits. So many of the issues that all of you are facing are ones I understand, relate to, and would like to bundle as a new way forward for the whole country. But all of this begins with you. And when the business community, especially small business community, can congregate and collectively advocate for policies together, it's a lot of strength. And I can tell you that small business is listened to by Democrats and Republicans. The problem is large businesses are the ones that organize better and have more means to lobby us in Washington. So my hope and my interest is to hear more specific propositions from you, especially relative to the pay-fors. You know, how can we do this in a way that's thoughtful and reasonable? And I'm here to listen. My team, Zach is on the phone right now. my chief of staff, taking notes. Anything we hear today, anything that you would like us to investigate, advocate for, we're here to do. And I want to consider this a beginning, and I'm grateful to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Congressman Dean Phillips. I'm so used to calling you Dean.
You can call me Dean.
Okay. All right. Kelly, can I call you Kelly?
Again, to this morning, I'll make an exception.
For the
Make an exception.
for the introduction, though, it's Representative Kelly Morrison, who won in a very unwinnable district, by the way. So congratulations.
Oh, hey Todd, can I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
I forgot, which was my finale, which is I'm actually working right now on something called the CARE Act. Companies are responsible employers. I'm trying to, in the absence of federal policy that's hard to achieve right now, I'm trying to come up with a notion that would reward businesses who are taking steps in these directions and provide tax benefits, some type of a incentive to start taking better care of employees. Some of you are doing so, and I think we should be rewarding that behavior, which starts to create a cultural shift. So on any thoughts on that, we can share information about where we're at right now, but we're calling it the CARE Act. It won the New Dems Coalition best idea when we presented it just a couple months ago, so some good momentum. Just want you to know that that's on my mind. I'd love your ideas. Okay. And now to Kelly.
Good morning, everybody. Corinne, were you trying to say something? You look like you were adding something. Are you muted? I can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Corinne.
Can't hear me?
Oh,
no.
Oh, good. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Real quick on that. We appreciate that legislation, but I think that the hardest thing is that the tiniest businesses have a really hard time paying leave and doing, having good benefits in their businesses, and the kind of the more experienced businesses that have been in business for a long time can do so. So it's really challenging to have incentives for some businesses to provide kind of more healthcare benefits and paid leave benefits than other smaller businesses. But there is legislation on paid leave in the House, in Congress right now. It's called the Family Act.
Mm-hmm. I can't hear you. Is it possible to turn up the volume? I can't hear it too well.
Hey Todd, can you talk about the Family Act?
Yeah. Oh, there now. Yeah. No, I know. Yeah, I know it.
Oh, you know. Okay. Have you seen it?
It's HR 1185. I know it. Yeah, I know it well. Mm-hmm.
What is your position on that?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a position on it?
It's one of a number of propositions. I know we're looking at that. I'm not convinced that anything I've seen so far is the one, if you will. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it first. And right now we're not a co-sponsor, but I welcome your perspectives on it. And this is a great opportunity to hear from you.
Well,
I think, Corinne, I'll make your point. I think just because we can't hear you very well. The main point about, so your legislation, I think it's a great idea too. And I think, incentives as opposed to punishment is always a good idea. I think Corinne's making the point that there are a lot of businesses who would love to provide, who would love to treat their workers better, but just simply can't afford to.
I understand.
And so that's where who ends up getting left out on even these good ideas oftentimes is the smallest, most vulnerable businesses.
I hear, and if I could just speak to that's what, because it's been so hard to pass what is seemingly such reasonable legislation on these subjects, that my proposition, which has more support from Republicans, is to, when I say reward a business for taking good care of its employees, it's a backdoor way of doing the same thing, which is you get a tax, you'd get financial credit, if you will, let's call it tax credits, tax savings, if you implement these programs yourself. So I'm trying to find another way to do the same thing that might be more amenable to those who oppose it right now. So it's actually to help provide the resources to actually do what you want for your employees by giving a tax break.
So like a subsidy.
In the absence of legislation, yeah.
Kind of like a subsidy that would help them.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that has a little bit more interest by some of my Republican colleagues, because it's the notion of, if companies who are doing incentives and disincentives versus mandates is, as you know, a big issue among some of conservative colleagues of mine. And this is a way to perhaps move the needle a little bit by providing, those financial incentives for companies to take better care of employees. But I hear you. It's not the end all be all. It's perhaps an intermediary step to help get us to where we want to go.
Yeah, and I would say maybe even messaging it more clearly in that way might help it too. Okay, Corinne, anything to add?
I think we should I could share Major Alliance's opinion, but I'm much more interested in hearing about everyone else's opinion during the discussion. We have I know Representative Phillips has about 20 minutes left, and I think what we support at the federal level is the one that is mirrored at the state level, and we have the state legislation on paid family medical leave in the House that has passed the House, and I believe that Representative Morrison you share a little about that legislation, and then if anyone else has an opinion about the about paid family medical leave and the Family Act, you could pop it.
Okay, so if you're not speaking right now, why don't you put yourself on mute, and so the noise doesn't add up, and then let's finally go to Representative Kelly Morrison.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Todd. I'm sorry that we didn't get to meet at Unmapped Brewery. I was looking forward to checking that out.
I was going to morning beer.
Well, right, but kind of cool to wake up to a winter wonderland, though.
That totally still needs to happen, by the way.
Yeah, I'm in. Let's do it for sure. So I represent 9 communities in the South Lake Minnetonka area, and thank you for pointing out my very narrow victory, Todd. Appreciate that. But there are a ton of small businesses in my district, and as you all know, it's the backbone of our economy in Minnesota, and we need to do everything that we can to support the growth of small business and the success of small business, and paid family medical leave is a piece of that solution. And as you pointed out, Todd, there's overwhelming support for it. Unfortunately, our elected officials do not reflect the will of the people right now. So we did, as recounted already, we passed it in the House, and it didn't even get a hearing in the Senate. So it is one of those messages of elections have consequences, and we all have to do our research and carefully vote for both our local House members and our local senators. It's important. Congressman Phillips' work is obviously incredibly important. And there are ways in which our local officials in our state affect our daily lives more in some ways than at the federal level. So that's my plea to you. I'm preaching, I know, to the choir. But I think it's, I just want to thank you all for being here and for sharing your stories and for your advocacy. I mean, you guys are making, you're working for yourselves, but you're potentially making a huge difference for so many different people. So I'm just grateful for you taking the time to share your stories and for all the work, travel. I know you guys went to Duluth last week or a couple weeks ago. You're doing a lot, so thank you for that. And Todd, you know the legislation better than anyone, but you guys know that it helps to provide the leave that people need when they have a baby or if someone is ill. This is part of the life cycle. Not all of us have kids, but all of us will get sick. All of us will have a family member who gets sick, and you shouldn't lose your job over that. And you shouldn't not be able to pay for the necessities of life while you're recovering from that. I took a 6-week and a 12-week unpaid maternity leave. I don't recommend either. But it's just, we can do better than that in the United States and certainly in the state of Minnesota.
Yes, thank you very much, Kelly. And for those of you who may not have gone to the Capitol to testify, Main Street Alliance, that's one of the main things that we've been doing to support this legislation is getting, we can't afford to pay lobbyists. So each of us have to go tell our story to the Capitol ourselves. And so if any of you are interested in doing that, please, go through Corinne and we'll get you set up so that you feel comfortable in doing that. But let's kind of open the discussion. If anybody has anything to add, go ahead and add, and we can discuss a little if anybody's got a concern.
If I may, Representative Phillips, I guess my question, because I've met with numerous private insurance providers, and when you look at what they offer for family leave, it only, if you as an individual, female, have a baby, as in you carry the baby inside you, that's who gets, who insurance companies will pay out to. If you adopt, you don't get those benefits. And that's a real concern of mine. Also looking at the state of Minnesota, it's illegal to separate a kitten or a puppy from their mother before 8 weeks of age. And if you're caught doing so, not only are there severe fines, but you could also face up to a year in jail. And we are asking mommies and babies be separated at 6 weeks. And how that correlates, I just will never understand. And so I think this is big. And I look at like a tax incentive. I don't know if it would be enough of an incentive to like really offset the costs for me as truly a small business. And you're rewarding big business that can afford to offer these, so they get the kickback. And again, I feel like with a policy like that, you're continuing to separate big business from truly small Main Street businesses. And so I have some concerns in that area.
Thank you, Sarah. I first of all, your analogy to separating kittens from their mothers and we treat them better than human beings is powerful, and I'm going to use that with your blessing. Look, I'll be forthright. With Donald Trump in the White House and a Republican Senate led by Mitch McConnell, nothing that we're talking about is ever going to get through, period. And what I'm trying to do is find ways, perhaps in the near term, without being able to prognosticate the future, to at least elevate these issues, find a way to support small business using some of these tactics in ways that might pass. There's no question, though, that if we can change the composition of the Senate and replace the occupant of the White House with someone who shares more of these values and principles, a lot can change, and it'll probably change quickly, and I'll be a leading proponent of it. So I'm trying to dwell in the here and now and try to affect change now rather than just waiting, which unfortunately a lot of the current propositions will be forced to do until there's a change. So thank you. And by the way, in the CARE Act, the intention is not to reward the biggest enterprises who can, in many cases, do take good care of people. The key is to find some way to provide enough benefit to smaller business to provide those ample benefits and reward them and give them the opportunity to do so. And that's what we're working on. That's why I wanted to share it with you, so that you could share your perspectives. I already learned a few things, and I hope you'll continue to. And I will share our proposition with all of you, before we introduce it, so that we can solicit your feedback and hopefully improve it.
Yeah,
I will also continue to look at the various propositions out there, including the Family Act, and keep you apprised. But I just want you to know, just objectively, putting my name on a bill right now that that it stands no chance is easy. Trying to find some solutions in the near term to start moving the needle is really what I've invested in, and doesn't mean we can't do both.
Could I be so bold? I know Rubio has presented the idea of borrowing against Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
Can we have you on record saying that you would never support something like that? Because obviously the people that would be borrowing against their Social Security are the people that are going to be needing it potentially in the future. And I know Social Security is kind of a thin line, but Rubio was going to be presenting this in April or May of last year, but needless to say, the Mueller report and all that stuff came in and everything got blown up. But because that's, I know, one of the ones that the Senate has kind of toyed around with or thrown up there, that people can borrow against their Social Security for family leave.
That's, it's already at risk without leveraging it in a program like that. And if anything, we have to strengthen Social Security because it's the most successful anti-poverty program the world's ever known. And borrowing against it or allowing people to would be terrible and woeful mismanagement. So I
appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
And also the point that Dean is making is true in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kelly said, and like we've been saying, we've got to pass through 10 committees in the House, and the Senate refused to even hear it at all. So it's just that this partisan, BS, if you will, needs to go away. We could talk about campaign finance reform to get that, try and take care of that. But I would say part of the input too, Representative Phillips, is that kind of what Sarah's saying, the pushback on some things too. We would like it to be known that although the CARE Act that you're putting forth, I think is a good thing, it's not enough for most of us. And I know you realize that. And our tactic with the Coalition for Paid Family and Medical Leave right now is to keep pushing for it. And because it is just incredibly popular, both with the general public and with small business owners, that if you're actually going to be somebody in the Senate, like in Minnesota, if you're a Republican in the Senate and you refuse to hear this bill, shame on you a little bit. So that's that kind of the tactic that we're taking, holding them accountable for, who are you working for down there? Are you working for the people of Minnesota, or, because if you were, you'd probably listen to the Paid Family Medical Leave. So
on that subject, Todd, if I might just say, amongst you, those of you on this call, are you all supportive of the Family Act as it's been presented with the self-funded through payroll contribution?
I am.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure everyone on this call is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of a payroll tax.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So collectively, you and Main Street Alliance would endorse my support of it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so I'll visit with my team upon our return to our offices after the holiday, and we'll talk about it.
Great. That would be wonderful. And we always make the point that it's the unemployment insurance was fought against back when it was implemented.
Sure.
Now it's taken for granted by everybody. It's and so was Medicare, and so was Social Security. That was all fought really hard against by entities in Congress, and now nobody wants to get rid of it. So this I believe will become that once it's put in place. Most people, when you're adding something like an unemployment insurance, it almost kind of, you forget about it after a little bit. So I really think that's how it will end up unfolding.
And I remind all of you that, on the bill right now, the Family Act, there's one Republican, if you can imagine that, just one Republican co-sponsor. And, we have to find ways to message, encourage, advocate, and frankly, lobby Republicans, and many of them are small business owners themselves. So we need to find a way to either identify why they're not supportive of it or tweak it so that they can become supportive of it, and that'll be my task.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have? Corinne, I know it looks like you keep trying to get in, but we can't hear you very well. What did you have to say?
No, it's okay. Whatever we can do to support you in moving the Republicans along the way, and I think once especially business owners, understand how it would work, they are totally in support. I think the idea is when you just hear paid leave, sometimes people just think, oh, it's up to the business to pay all of the leave. And with this, it's not the case.
Yeah. Okay, I hear you, and thank you. We'll follow up. In fact, we'll make sure Zach and some my team will follow up after our discussion and get back to all of you on how we'll proceed.
Great, and please ask us for help.
Please. I will.
And you too, Kelly. If anything we can do, come down to St. Paul when you need us. Let us know.
Fantastic.
Well, yeah, I will call, I will show up, I will do whatever it takes. I'm doing it on my own through the help of Main Street Alliance and Corinne, but if there's anything else, and I've got a network of other small business owners, moms that are advocating for this, that actually have taken themselves out of the workforce. So please let us know what we need to do, who we need to call, where we need to show up. We'll be there.
Fantastic. You are now officially on my speed dial.
Please.
All right, everybody.
Now, are there are there questions from anyone else on the call, like JD or anyone who hasn't spoken about the legislation itself? Marie, I'm not sure if you have any questions.
Okay, well, anybody at any time, if you do come up with any questions, go through Corinne and we'll answer questions. And again, if you'd like to get more involved, let us know, because the more the merrier. And what we need to do for both Kelly and Dean and other legislators are, the ones that are with us, we need to get their back. So a lot of times people think, well, you know, my congressman is already in favor of that, so I don't need to call him. Well, he needs your support, or she needs your support. So you know, even if you think it's not necessary, if you don't think you need to convince your representative to be in favor of something, you need to get their back. So you know, I know it's appreciated by the legislators when they can go into a meeting and say, you know, I just had about 15 small business owners kind of hassling me because I'm, you know, so, and that is very helpful for them. So, you know, we need to get their back. So keep that in mind, and it's pretty easy to contact your representatives. So look into it, and Corinne or I can help you, but certainly go through Corinne and let us know what you'd like to do. So does anybody have anything else? Corinne, do you want to wrap things up kind of, or?
Yeah, well, I look forward to having an in-person roundtable at Unmapped Brewery another day. Congressman Phillips, when there's another congressional recess and you want to have a beer, we would love to join you and talk about healthcare or economic development or childcare or one of the other issues we work on. So
I welcome the opportunity. I'm grateful. And if I might, the question on everybody's mind, Todd, is what is that sparkly thing in your closet? Oh no.
It used to be on Eve, my daughter's doorway into her bedroom.
Oh, sure. That's Eve's, yeah.
My bedroom.
Hey, healthy, happy Thanksgivings to all, and thank you. Your advocacy for the Family Act will move the needle for me, and I'll get back to you all on that. And thank you. We have to broaden this group and broaden the advocacy and work on this collectively. And I think there's great possibility if we do, but we have to invite more to the table. We really have to.
Thank you all for all you're doing. Really appreciate it. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Thank you so much, both of you. Representative Kelly Morrison, Representative Dean Phillips, thank you so much for joining us. We so appreciate it. Wish it could have been in person, but this has been great too. So thanks so much for your time. I know it's hard.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.